we will convene the January 12th, 11th, what is today? 12th, yeah. Regular meeting of the Windham Southeast School District Board, called to order at 6:02 p.m. Once again, we've had to make multiple adjustments to the agenda. I tried to do it in a sort of thoughtful way instead of just putting the numbers in different places. So we'll start with the call to order, and then we'll have unfinished business, which will be very brief, the sexual abuse investigation update. Then the administrative report, which is generally pretty early in the agenda, and the policy review and the new business item, the interdisciplinary climate report card project, we will postpone until the next meeting, because we need to replace that with a conversation about how we want to vote on our budget this year. The legislature changed the rules again, and we have the opportunity to vote by Australian budget on March 1st and not schedule an annual meeting, which would probably be difficult to manage anyway. Well, I'm not going to editorialize too much, but we have an opportunity to do an Australian ballot fairly early in the process and get things squared away fairly early in the season, and with minimal engagement or involvement or distractions for the members of the school community that are trying to run the school community. So that's going to be our second topic after the unfinished business. So let me just have a look here and see if everyone is in. There's still people coming in, so I'm going to wait just another minute or two. Okay, it looks like everyone's here. So the first business is an update on the sexual abuse investigation. As we announced at our last meeting, the Windham Southeast School District Board has engaged an investigator, and will share details about the next steps in the investigation in the days or weeks to follow. We have signed a contract. The investigator is aligning resources and putting together the infrastructure necessary to be able to adequately and carefully conduct the investigations. And once they begin, I would suspect that there'll be a press release and a website and phone number and email available next week. I don't want to say early or late because it's not up to me. And at that point, the board will pretty much pull back from any other activity or conversations, waiting for the investigator to finish their work, or at least complete some of it and give us regular reports, and then a final report. So we really aren't going to have much to say about that for the time being, and probably until the investigation is well underway, maybe not even until completed. It's really important that the board not be involved in steering the ship, basically, that investigation be impartial. So that's the update on the sexual abuse investigation. And
you've got a hand up.
Paul?
You have one hand up.
Oh, Mindy, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Any questions? Mindy, go ahead. Please identify yourself and your town, please.
We have a lot of feedback. Is that okay? Hi, I'm Mindy Haskins-Rogers. I live in Northampton, but I'm a BUHS alum. And I'm just wondering, what you mentioned that Mr. Overtree would be working with the investigator to on a rollout plan and a press release. What will his role be in the actual investigative process?
He won't have any role in the investigating process. He's our advisor and our consultant, and for things like press releases, we like to engage him because he's very skilled.
Thank you, David.
Welcome. Also, one little point of personal privilege, I was contacted recently by a young woman who is volunteered to run for a school board seat from Brattleboro, Lana Dever, and I see that Lana is here, and I wanted to invite you just to say hello, Lana, and maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm sure when we have the petitions in and all of our candidates in place, we'll have a candidates forum, but since you're the only one that's contacted me so far, you're welcome to show your face and say hi to the board.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lana Dever, as some of you may know. I'm a longtime Brattleboro resident. I've served on quite a few boards and worked in the town in quite a few capacities, most recently on the Safety Review Committee that happened last year. I'm really excited to run for the school board and to represent our students and our teachers in this really crazy time. Currently, I work for Youth Services in Brattleboro, and I work with homelessness, runaway and homeless youth. I run our youth shelter, and I help as a liaison between our community and our youth to get them involved and represented. And I look forward to seeing all of you sort of out and around, and I look forward to any conversations that you would like to have with me and any insight or input that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Next is the administrative report. Mark?
Okay. I'll give a brief COVID update and then we'll shift gears a little bit. So coming back into school from the winter break and receiving some new guidance around contact tracing and vaccination status, we have definitely been, I would say, overwhelmed with the duty of contact tracing. So I believe new guidance is on the horizon, which will be announced next week, around turning over that responsibility to families. So there's a press release today with the Governor, Secretary of Ed, more details to come next week, but that is on the horizon. So a change in how we're contact tracing and with COVID and what our responsibilities are with that. Tonight, I'm really happy and pleased to bring with us Deb Coombs and Jen Kors, who are our ELL coordinators. Jen at the BU6 level and Deb for elementary. And we have been working very closely since the start of the school year, planning around trying to be as proactive as possible around this Afghani resettlement happening now in Brattleboro and for weeks to come. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for Jen and Deb to represent the work that we've been collaborating on and to report out to the community. So I'll turn it over to Jen and Deb.
All right, thank you. We're glad to be here and to share some information with you. As Mark said, we've been working quite regularly since the beginning of the year in an effort to get ready for students we know will be coming due to the resettlement happening in Brattleboro. So we have some information we'd like to share with you in the slideshow, just to give you a little insight into what we've been working on.
And I know we're not connected to Zoom, but I know with it being recorded, perhaps people can access the slideshow that way, or it can be put into the minutes as well.
Great.
And I'm Jen Kors. I'm an ELL teacher and coordinator. I'm mostly working at the high school and middle school level. I have the pleasure of doing that for a little while along with Deb, and it's really great to be here tonight. So we just wanted to share a little bit of the work being done kind of district-wide and within our program, and also the conversations and activities happening in a lot of our school sites to welcome students and families, and a little bit about the work that we are already do. So a little background information, we have students and families that we serve from 21 different countries and speak 17 different languages. And We are expecting to have additional students and families. Brattleboro is expecting to have 100 people from different cities and towns in Afghanistan to resettle here by the end of February. Probably on a weekly basis, moving to Brattleboro. Many are currently in the United States and are receiving support through community members in Brattleboro and through an organization called ECDC. And they are helping with this, and a lot of members of our community are helping with this effort of assisting with relocating to Brattleboro. Anything to add there?
So families have started arriving. The first families arrived in town last week, and I believe that some more are coming actually later this evening. So it's an exciting time, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to work with them.
When we have information about 100 individuals, that's adults, as well as families and children of a variety of ages. So we wanted to share a little bit of the work being done. We really appreciate the proactive approach that our district has had to preparing to welcome additional students and families. So we just, here's a little bit of what's happening. A lot of meetings, and which we're really happy to have to help coordinate and really talk with members outside our school community who are also assisting with this work. So we're meeting with the Ethiopian Community Development Council, who's really working directly with families and adults who are resettling here. The Brattleboro Jewish Community Council, which is a co-sponsorship group. St. Michael's Episcopal Church, World Learning SIT, where families will be moving to for a brief period of time while they find more long-term housing, and also other school districts throughout Vermont and the State Refugee Office.
So these are just a few of the community organizations that we've been working on building some collaboration with, also with Brattleboro Development Council and other organizations too, but it's an idea of what's been going on. There's been a lot of collaboration happening among staff and also with teachers and students in preparation for welcoming these new students that we'll be getting. When we think of welcoming new students, there's so many different aspects that go along with that, and some of those involve nursing. We know that many students will probably be coming with some incomplete medical records, so just planning for how to best work with that, working with technology to help with learning with students who may or may not have had much experience with technology in the past, working with food services to accommodate any special dietary requirements, just so many different aspects that go into welcoming this group of new students.
So this is just a kind of a sampling of work being done district-wide. So we've had students who, and maybe Deb, you could talk a little bit about this because I know this happened at the
So
site.
there's an initiative at Academy where they're going to be receiving donations of picture books, and also they're doing some fundraising through a bracelet program where they have constructed bracelets they'll be selling by donation to raise money to purchase picture books for the new families who are coming. The intent behind the picture books, of course, is that they could be talked about and experienced in any language. But a lot of work happening in many different classrooms and preparing with students in a lot of different ways from doing Zooms with former students that have been in our district learning English, and students creating welcome books for students who are coming to learn about our school and our community. Just a lot of student involvement and teacher involvement.
And we also know, for example, at the middle school level and at the high school level, there are conversations in social studies about Afghanistan, looking at different topics, and students doing some research and learning more. And the library has ordered some resources and books that are bilingual in Dari and Pashto for students to be able to see a little bit of home and home language, which is a welcoming, it's a welcoming act. There's a BAM student group and an advisor and teacher who's looking at a welcoming committee there. They're making signs, as well as at the high school, talking about making signs in Dari or Pashto of different parts of the building, so that students can have a little support that way. The BUHS Student Council has talked about having a welcoming committee, and there are additional students who would like to be part of that. And also at advisory, we're planning on discussing how, in general, do we help all students feel welcome as a new member of the community? Not only for students who may be arriving from Afghanistan, but just in general. How do we do that as a student body and as a community? And looking at good matches for students for classes as they enroll in schools and at the high school, some good matches for what will be best to have a good day-long experience. So again, that's kind of a sampling.
We've been, Jen and I, as well as others in the district, have been doing a lot of research. We're fortunate that at this time, because there were about 50 to 60,000 Afghan refugees evacuated from Afghanistan who are currently housed on military bases. There's a lot of information right now available on ways that we can help to make them feel welcome in school and in the community. And so we've been trying to delve through a lot of those resources and find the ones that will be most beneficial to the teachers that we work with. And these are a few of those. And we also created a site to help support teachers as they welcome students who don't know English yet. And that can be a challenge in bridging the curriculum that is needed for them too.
So this is our district website, and a lot of resources around supporting and welcoming students from Afghanistan, and really a little bit about what we do and techniques that are effective that really serve all students. We just wanted to be available if there were any questions or thoughts or needs. We're here, and appreciate, again, the proactive nature and just the outpouring of support for all of our students.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions from the board? I'm not seeing any hands up. One of the
Lana
things.
has a hand up.
I'm sorry? No, I'm the board members, Paul.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just looking for board members first. And Sean does. Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, this just seems fantastic to me. I was just thinking as you were giving your presentation, what it would be like for a family, for young kids to come from a foreign country and land in southern Vermont. All the challenges, all the excitement, and it seems like you two have just put so much into trying to make it a cohesive experience for the people that are coming. So it seems incredible, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, who would be a good person to contact for like books and things like that to donate?
I think you could contact either Jen or myself, and we can, based on whatever the wish is, we can then direct you to the correct person.
Is there contact information on the slideshow? We can put our contact information in the agenda if that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. And maybe send it to me and I'll get it to the board. And just to sort of add to that, Liz, there has been an effort, I'm not sure how connected it is with the work that we're doing here, but in the community to gather resources for people. And I think it took something like 4 days to get enough sheets and blankets and pillows and pillowcases for as many families as are coming. And it was really pretty remarkable. I brought a cedar chest full of stuff, really nice more blankets and things. And then we found some more and some flannel sheets, and it was like, oh, we got enough already. So we were saving them just in case. But it's a very broad effort. It's kind of amazing. And what Sean said about choosing a really good community to come into, I think this, it's going to be really clear.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of stuff that I still have from the preschool that could be very useful and helpful and welcomed by folks coming here. Just been waiting to give it to somebody.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things they were asking for are people that can drive around and pick things up. So I imagine somebody can come up and get them. Lana Dever, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I want to say I think this is fantastic, and I'm so excited to be welcoming Afghanistan refugees into Vermont. So I had a couple questions about, as a person who's relocated to a white state myself and having that be quite a culture shock. I'm wondering what supports are in place with regards to cultural competency so that these folks are able to see themselves represented in our community, no matter how small that representation is. We don't have a mosque locally. I know that there's in Hadley, Mass, and there's the Islamic Center of Western Massachusetts. I'm curious to know what efforts have been done to reach out to those folks, as well as the root and any local folks. And and as far as books go, I would love to suggest Nancy from Everyone's Books as a person to talk to who just knows so much about some really great resources, and not just to give the children books, but give them books where they can see themselves in the books. I think that's so important. When you walk into Vermont, it's lovely, it's welcoming, and it is also incredibly foreign, not just because it's another country, but because it's a very white state. So just throwing that out there. Thank you.
So there are a lot of joint efforts happening, as we were saying, as far as cultural orientation and acquisition that's being handled for the adults through ECDC, and that will be happening. There's a required component to that with refugee status, and that will be happening at SIT for the refugees who are coming for the first 8 weeks that they're here. And then there will be ongoing efforts and support through the co-sponsorship groups that are working with ECDC to support the families and individuals who are coming. It's a very well organized, very thoughtful approach to welcoming the families and individuals to the community, so that each co-sponsorship group has people assigned to sort of each area of perceived or potential need with education, with transportation, with medical help. Just sort of all areas have been thought of, and hopefully will be covered and supported in a really helpful way.
Yeah. And I think within our schools, the Diversity Equity Committee, these are the conversations that are happening district-wide. I know not just for students and families arriving from Afghanistan, but just in general, the importance of students being able to have windows and mirrors being able to see themselves in the stories or the work that they have, and also windows to the world. So those are ongoing conversations. That's a large part of that work, and I think it's going, it's combining with the work of welcoming our new students.
A lot of work that has been started already you know, but then continuing and ongoing.
Ruby McAdoo.
Hi, my name is Ruby McAdoo. I'm a parent. I'm a parent of students at PCS, and I'm part of an interfaith family. My kids are Muslim. My husband is an immigrant from a Muslim country. So I just wanted to speak to what Lana mentioned, and also just let everyone know that there is one of the collaborating organizations with ECDC is the Brattleboro Area Interfaith. I think it's called the Leadership Alliance. And that in that group, there isn't a mosque in our area, but there are Muslims in our area, and there are Muslim students in our schools as well. And I've always been very impressed by the district and our schools' support of our family. But through that interfaith group, we are trying to meet those cultural needs in terms of welcoming and letting these families feel that representation and feel that there are other people in the community to support them. And I have as part of that kind of little collaborating group, have reached out in a few different ways to the district to make sure that they are aware of any kind, if there is support that's needed around those cultural pieces, that there are people there who can help. So just letting everyone know.
And please, feel free to reach out to Jen and I. We've been doing a lot of thinking about the best ways to support and help students to feel comfortable with different practices during the school day and outside of that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. We'll be glad you came. And we'll be looking for updates as we go along.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We'll go back to Mark.
Do you want to do retirements and resignations?
Yeah, that would be good. I think, Wendy, I believe you have the names of the three people. So
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair.
great,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Go ahead, Mark, please.
Okay, we have Janet Michaud, school nurse at Guilford Central School, who is intending to retire at the end of the school year. And then Steve has some BOHS teachers.
Sure, thank you, Mark. So first, Marion Smith, who is a fine and practical arts teacher at the high school. She's been with us for 33 years, and she is announcing her retirement. Marion has been a great part of our faculty for a long time, and we're grateful for her work, both at the high school and in the Career Center. Right.
So
Was there another?
There's another resignation, and our teacher, Clark DuPont, is resigning at the end of this year. He's not retiring. Clark has been with us for 5 years, and during that time, he's been an invaluable person with our ceramics program, and Clark's influence will be greatly missed.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, please, to accept the resignation and retirements as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Thomas. A second?
Seconded with regret.
Is that Ann?
Yes.
Thank you. Seconded by Ann. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The retirements and resignations are accepted as presented. Thank you. The PreK agreement?
Oh yes, we do have a PreK agreement with Beaver Brook Children's School in Wilmington, Vermont. So this would be a proactive relationship in terms of them joining our PreK program partnership.
Great. Could I have a motion, please, to welcome the Beaver Brook Children's School from Wilmington, Vermont into a PreK partnership agreement with the school district?
So moved, Jackie.
Jackie moved and Liz seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Great. Okay. And COVID update?
Yep, I gave that before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought there might be something, I thought you might be asking us to close down for a few days.
Oh, no. Fortunately, we'll be back in session tomorrow.
Okay. So I believe then the next is to talk about changing the vote on the budget, the FY23 budget, and any articles that will be included in the warning from the third Tuesday, I believe it is, in March to the first Tuesday in March, which is town meeting day, which means that the town clerks would all be, their work would be done on March 5th. March 1st, we wouldn't be giving them another election and another ballot to count. And it would just be a lot cleaner and easier, I think, for everybody involved in giving all, well, I'll let the board discuss that and make the points. But so the question is, I guess we should start with a motion, and then somebody can remind me that we have to vote on it. Could I have a motion, please, to change our voting date for our budget, our budget and articles from March 15th to March 1st town meeting day, and to vote by Australian ballot?
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? Sean?
Sorry, I had my hand up and didn't get it down in time, but I think it's unfortunate that we won't even have town meeting this year, but I think it's inevitable. And I think it's a very good thing to work towards, to have the budget voted on the 1st of March. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Any other thoughts or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving our budget and articles vote from March 15th to March 1st, voting to be done by Australian ballot, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's Pat. I thought we were going to take a long time to talk about that, and there it goes. Great, thank you. So we're on to...
Not quite, David.
Yes.
So now with that, we'll need to set a date for a public informational night.
Right.
And Barb really needs that tomorrow, as it needs to be included on a postcard mailer. So she needs it basically by tomorrow. So Frank and I talked a little earlier today. I think February 24th was a recommended date.
It's a Thursday?
The Thursday before the Tuesday vote?
Yeah, it's within that 10-day prior requirement.
Oh, gosh. Oh, because there is early voting, right?
And then there is early voting.
Yeah, and absentee voting and all of
Yeah.
that's going to have been happening for 30 days before we get to present the budget.
Yeah. We
But I
did,
forgot, it's got to be within 10, no more than
10 days.
10 and no fewer than...
the information meeting can be, we can have it on the 25th, and then we can have it as many times as we want, but there has to be at least one within 10 days of the vote.
I see.
So there's no restriction on the number of them, and that 24th happens to be within that 10-day period.
Okay. So then we would not, because our next board meeting is the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be a public information meeting for the board?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but traditionally that is what we've
Yeah.
done. And we're talking about February 24th for the
For another one?
the required, within
Okay.
10 days, yeah.
Okay.
Which is a
So
Thursday.
I just want to be really clear, because I was thinking that on the 24th, for some reason I think today's the 12th, I just can't let that go. The 25th will be our second regular meeting of the school board, where I thought we would hear some more budget presentation. So I think we want to be really clear and warn that and publicize it as a public information meeting about the board, so that as we get more information, everybody else will, and then we'll vote on it, but people will know that this is the time to come and ask questions.
Yep.
Okay, great. So can we make sure that outreach happens? Yep.
Yep.
Great. Does anyone see any issues with that plan, or any concerns? Michelle?
I have an unrelated question to what you just asked.
Well, let's see if we need, I don't know that we have to go any further with that, then we'll just do that. You know, and Barb will have the information she needs, and we'll basically have two information meetings.
Yep.
Great. Nothing usual about this year.
Right.
Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
So I'm just wanting clarification then if when people will be voting for school board members, school board directors, and when anyone taking a new seat, when that transition would be. Does that bring us to the second week of the second Tuesday, or the first meeting in March? That's for the board, the second Tuesday?
Yes, those people would take their seats on the second Tuesday of March.
Okay, thank you. I'm asking for clarification because of the superintendent search and the SU's timeline and thinking about changing of seats. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about the dates? Okay, then we'll move into, let me just check and make sure I'm not missing something here. Yeah, we'll move into the budget presentation discussion, and Jackie, Wendy needs something. Go ahead, Wendy.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, sorry, I'm getting over an illness, so I'm a little foggy. February 25th is the date for the public information session?
No.
Oh goodness, I'm
January 25th, our next regular meeting will also be a public presentation of the budget meeting.
January 25th, okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
January
Thank you so
25th,
much.
and then again on February 24th.
And February 24th, okay.
Great, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure, yeah, thanks for your help.
Jackie, I understand Michelle sounds like she's still ill, I'm sorry to say. But Jackie, I'd asked you to prepare some comments about the budget. You've had several opportunities on the Finance Committee and working with the Independent Budget Review Committee to really dig into the budget. So I thought it'd be great to have a board member talk about what we're trying to get done with this budget and share that with the rest of the board and with the public, and then we'll look at the numbers with Frank and respond to any other questions that people have. And Michelle and Sean, obviously being on the committee and Sean being the chair, you're welcome to chime in as well. I thought it'd be great to hear from a couple of new-ish board members about how they experienced this budget process. So Jackie, if you're ready, please go ahead.
I am, David. Thanks so much. I will ask everyone to bear with me slightly. This is going to be only my second time sharing my screen. I might hiccup over that a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and do it.
I hope Paul's made it possible for you to do that.
Nope, disabled participant screen sharing.
Good to go.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Let's see. Can someone confirm that you can see this spreadsheet on the screen?
No.
Yep, there it is.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was, the reasons for me doing this. I'm on the Finance Committee. This year we've worked with an independent budget review committee, which has been really wonderful. A lot of great questions and information has been generated out of that. And I'm also on the WSESU board, who we have a budget that we also, that's part of this that we have passed. So I've spent a lot of time on budgets this year, and the easiest way I find for anyone to learn about how the budget process works, because it's lengthy, there's a lot of pieces and things that have to be done, is we've got a budget timeline that's on our website. I've got a link to it right here. Paul, if I click on this link, will it go there, or should I just click on my tab? What's going to work?
It'll work. Go ahead.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to feel really smart for putting the links in here.
Really brave.
Yay.
There you go.
Okay. So you can see there's all these dates of things that have happened and upcoming things that need to happen. The actual budget development, all the different stakeholders that have a say in that, and administrators and everybody that's involved. And there are committee reviews that happen. So if we look to, you know, in November and then December, we reviewed it in the finance committee. Where we are right now, tonight should be the second draft presented to the school board for review. So we're going to do that. And then as we just discussed, we're going to present the third draft. So basically it's many, many months in the process of getting the budget ready, and a lot of people looking and giving input and asking questions. And then the school board approves it, and then we send it to the voters. So that might not tell you a whole lot about the process, certainly not as much as Frank is going to tell you, but I just wanted to share this. This is on the website. If anybody had questions or thoughts, just wanted to know, you know, how we get to where we are right now in budget season. This is your information. This gets updated when changes are made, but it's a pretty interesting document. It also shows when we've had specific presentations. The SU board, we had, you know, our special education presentation, the food service presentation, and we have a lot of opportunities for learning that happen in this process. So now I'm going to get out of this, you know, hopefully, and back to my spreadsheet. Okay. So the budget is really robust. It's 202 pages, or the proposed budget. It's always that big, and it's really fun for people that are interested and also that like spreadsheets to drill down into all the data and see where we're ahead, where we've struggled, where we've spent more, what we're spending our money on. You could spend a lot of time and learn a lot doing that. And I have done that because I enjoy that kind of stuff. But for me, for this year, I felt like the most, like what I would want to know, what I would want to tell voters about the most is how we're going to spend the SR3 funds, because all of those proposed expenditures are in our next budget. And our district has just done so much work around like putting the money toward positive student outcomes. So I put together this little spreadsheet. On the left here are the goals that I took from the WSESU recovery plan, which I'll click over to that screen in a second. And then next to each goal is an activity that's also from that plan. And then the third column is how it's related to the budget proposal, the proposed SR3 spending portion of that, which is also on the website, and I link to that as well. So I'm just going to click to these briefly so you can see what they look like in case you want to look at them yourself, and then I will come back and talk about the points that I highlighted. Is this still working? I
think it's coming, yeah.
My screen's still doing it? All right, great, thank you. Sorry for having to ask so much. So let me get myself out of the way. So on this beautiful website, there's an overview planning process, and then you can go down to the goals and you can read about what we're doing and what we're planning for each one of these goals. I'm not going to go through every little bit of it now. I'm just going to show you a little bit. So engagement and truancy is something we've talked about, academic achievement and success. And down here, complete this survey to share your thoughts. That's a really good one after you've read through everything to say what you think about it. But goal number 1, to increase students' social emotional learning competencies of self-management, engagement, and self-efficacy. There's all of these activities that this is what we're going to do to meet that goal. And then over on the right, measure and progress. This is what's been done and what continues to be happening. So there's a lot of information here that gives you, a good outline of what we're planning to spend the money on and what we're already spending money and resources on, because we've identified that it's very important. So I'm going to go back. Okay. So basically, I just highlighted, some of the major, you know what, guys, I'm so sorry. I skipped over something else. I want to show you this first. So this link is going to bring us to the Sr3 Spending Plan. I'm sorry, it's also on the website. And a couple of pages down. All right, so you can see what we spent ESSER 1 funds on, ESSER 2, and I looked at ESSER 3 plan to date. things that are in the budget that we're planning to spend some of those funds on to support our students and our recovery. So now I've showed you where I got all this data. So this first goal, to increase our students' social emotional learning competencies of self-management, engagement, and self-efficacy. Activities, meaning how we're going to do it. We're going to hire additional mental health supports, clinicians, social workers, and provide required supervision. And then in the budget, we're saying we're going to hire social workers and behavioral support specialists. Another goal is to decrease the number of students who've been absent for 15 days or more. To do that, we're going to hire specialized staff to address high-need families. This may include an engagement coordinator, social workers, and community partners, emphasizing outreach to families who have disengaged, and embedded professional development for integrating engagement strategies. And we're proposing to do this by hiring social workers, behavioral support specialists, nursing staff, and a recovery coordinator, and again, staff professional development. Another goal is to increase general education participation rates for students with IEPs in the 80% or more least restrictive environment category will increase by 15%. So we are going to do this by implementing a building-based instructional coaching model to support embedded collaborative professional development. We're going to provide professional development in universal design for learning, which I'm going to talk just a little bit about in a second because I'm so excited about it. With embedded coaching to ensure all students will receive core instruction and appropriate supports. And we're going to develop and implement improved data system to allow more accessibility for teachers and school leaders. And again, in the proposed budget, we've budgeted for staff professional development to get us there, and we've budgeted for technology, hardware, and software for instruction. So in quite a few meetings that I've been in, we've talked a lot about universal design for learning, and I want to talk about it more because I think it's really fascinating and just a wonderful thing. I'm glad that we're moving in that direction, and I just want more people to know about it because I had no idea what was happening. Before going to these meetings, I was just seeing these really great and interesting things coming home with my children and wanted to know, you know, why are things different? Why does it feel, you know, a little more accessible for everybody? And this is the reason why. So pardon me if I'm going on and on about this, but universal design for learning is a way of thinking about teaching and learning that helps give all students an equal opportunity to succeed. And it's an approach that offers flexibility in the way students access material, engage with it, and show what they know. So some examples of this are posting the goals of the lesson. So the students don't just know I'm learning 2 + 2 is 4, but why? There's a goal, an ultimate goal, so they know what they're working towards. And then allowing for different assignments that cover the same materials, because we have so many different learners that they're not all going to learn things in the same way or be successful if they have to do everything in the same regimented way. Being more flexible and meeting the needs of all of our learners so that they can all succeed is part of this. Having flexible workspaces, because not all students can sit at a desk all day. There's different environments and spaces that different kids could be more successful learning in, and UDL allows for that. And then giving regular feedback rather than just report card time. So the kids know how they're doing and can get the support that they might need. So that is part of our staff professional development that we've budgeted for. And again, I'm really excited for it. So I wanted to talk about it. And then the last goal that I put in this is to decrease the gaps in academic performance, graduation, and failure rates between students in underserved populations and their peers. And again, we're going to do this by implementing a building-based instructional coaching model to support embedded collaborative professional development. Once again, we're going to do this with universal design for learning and develop and implement improved data system to allow more accessibility for teachers and school leaders. So again, we're proposing in the budget, instructional coaches, staff professional development, and technology, hardware, and software for instruction. And then just a couple other pieces that are in the proposed spending is a COVID coordinator, a recovery coordinator, pre-K coordinator, diversity and inclusion coordinator, and building improvements to support healthy learning spaces. That was a lot. I'm gonna stop the on that, and I should probably just said so much, ask for questions before I talk about the last topic I want to talk about. Okay.
I don't see any hands up, so go ahead, Jackie.
Beautiful. So if you go down through the budget and drill down into the numbers, you're going to see a lot of differences. What I found to be just really impressive and interesting, and something that I knew would happen, I didn't realize to this degree, is the difference in the food service budget. USDA partway through the pandemic did increase the amount of reimbursement that they give to schools, meaning, through the National School Lunch Program, the USDA gives money to the schools to reimburse them for the school meals that they provide. Thus, we have to spend less money on school meals. They're supporting us by making it easier for us to afford school meals, and it just looks really nice in the budget. Of the schools, they had a decrease of 77%. And then just last week, USDA announced that they're going to reimburse an additional 25 cents per meal, which is really huge, and I'm sure there'll be adjustments to the budget. But that, in combination with the ESSER-3 funds, just makes, not that budgets are always the most exciting thing in the world, but it's very exciting to me because we're going to see significant movement in areas that are just all about supporting our kids and their basic needs, two of which obviously being access to nutrition, and the other that I find so important, and I know everybody does, is social emotional learning. So I realize I didn't give you a big number crunch, that's Frank's department, but this is really like what we're trying to do, what the district is trying to do with the budget and all the funds available, is just support the kids in the ways that they really need it now. And I'm just really happy to see that that's what we're doing, and glad I got to talk about it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jackie. Michelle or Sean, do you want to add anything to that before we hear from Frank?
Yeah, I'll share just very quickly. Thank you, Jackie, for covering this. I'm a little sick and I don't want to start coughing, and so I'm going to try to get to my point. And I just want to say that I'll share the heart piece from myself. And part of the reason I wanted to be on the finance committee is really excellent work, but it's important to understand, watching how our dollars are being allocated, that it's supporting our district values. And I think Jackie just really, you managed to encompass that in obviously going over a lot of the recovery plan, but it's been to sit back and monitoring how are we working in these values around diversity and equity, our climate awareness, and how are we bringing that into how do we actually see the dollar be spent on that? It's there, it's justified. I'm not prepared like Jackie with a spreadsheet to prove it to everybody, but it's been encouraging as a board member to witness that. The other, another really specific thing I've been keeping a close eye on, not because I don't have great trust in the integrity of the people working for us, but because it's the underlying question that people want to know is, since we've become a merged district, is, following the dollars, and are we seeing, is it a fair process? Is it equitable distribution? And, I think if you don't take the time to really learn and look at all these line items and look at these details to understand, it can be easy to try to compare apples and oranges, and ultimately it came down to looking at what we're spending per student and looking at it's totally comparable to see all of our schools we're aligning, we're investing in our students pretty equally, and it really comes down to a lot of brilliance of the professionals and people doing the work, figuring out how to assess need. And so that's all. I just wanted to share that those are some of the things I've been paying attention to closely, sitting on the finance committee and just being a school board member and feeling like that's my responsibility and why I'm sitting in the seat. So.
Thank you. Tim.
Hi. One of the questions I sent earlier to Mark and Frank, the COVID coordinator and the recovery coordinator, I believe a significant amount of funds are being given to these two positions. could you list some of the job duties that this person will have? I have really a vague idea about what the job responsibilities are for these people. And have you started to identify anybody?
Okay, so I'll start with the COVID coordinator, because we currently do have a COVID coordinator, Arlene Scott, who's a retired nurse from our school district. And she's been serving in that role for 2 years now, and in a part-time fashion. However, she's giving us full-time hours, especially over the last few months. So moving forward, considering we're in year 3 of a pandemic and thinking ahead, we're feeling like that needs to be a more permanent full-time position. So essentially, what the role of that position will be to serve as a nurses leader and liaison, to identify professional development for our nurses, to help with communication with our communities, to work directly with principals around guidance, health guidance, COVID guidance. So it's really a leadership amongst our healthcare professionals, and it's to move a position that we already have in place from part-time to full-time. In terms of recovery coordinator, this was a position that we advertised for last spring and throughout the summer. Never found a candidate that we felt could do the work like we wanted. That position essentially serves as an assistant superintendent. So a recovery coordinator would help us facilitate and manage our recovery plan that Jackie and Michelle just presented. Focus of that, the work of that person would be around supervision, evaluation of principals, work on supporting the development of the recovery plan, balanced with accountability of follow through on the work that we're doing this year as a leadership team to set a foundation for how we start the school year next year. So things like the framework of our recovery plan is around universal design for learning, MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, and development of educational support teams. So my goal with our group this year has been to identify the ideal standard for each of those 3 categories. And then next year, the focus will be on implementation at each school site. So that's kind of the vision of how those 2 positions we see supporting the continuation of our recovery plan.
Okay, so did I hear you say that the recovery person would be responsible for evaluating principals?
That would be a part of the role, yep.
And would this position sunset in 2 years?
Good, absolutely, yep. And we may not fill it. Like I said, we need the right person for that position, and we didn't feel like we found that this summer.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yep, but the concept is around additional support and foundational support and the ability to provide accountability as well in terms of setting that standard for all of our schools.
Thank you. Christina?
I have a similar question. These are SU positions, the coordinator positions we're talking about. Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't see those anywhere in the district budget, and I was thinking I really must have dozed off, so thank you very much. And,
Yeah.
and I just also think great presentation, Jackie, and extending thanks from the Independent Budget Review Committee for how seamlessly this project has gone on, working together, and it's been great working with the Finance Committee, so thanks to all of you.
Ruby?
Hi, Ruby McAdoo, Putney Central School Leadership Council, and also the PCS Playground Committee. So I'm kind of raising my hand now because it seems like this might be the moment to ask a question or to make some comments. And I guess there are two, this was a really wonderful presentation. I love the website. It's great access for information. But there are two areas that I think we, the Leadership Council and other parents at Putney Central School have felt there's something missing, or there's something that we want to see and we don't. And so I don't know the right process. You know, we filled out the survey. We, you know, try to be as vocal as possible, but I don't know what other way than in this meeting to be like, hey, we want this to be considered for funding. And I don't have the time to allocate to go to the finance committee meetings, or you know, and I don't know if that's the right place, but I guess I'm wondering if I can just read a few things that have been prepared related to these points, or if this is not the right time.
I wonder, I think Frank has a brief presentation about the big numbers, and then I know there were a number of other questions that people had, and I had a couple myself, and there are also some areas where the board is going to need some additional support in the budget, given what we've found we need to do this year. Some of that's going to continue next year. So, Ruby, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have Frank do his sort of overview of the big number. Not the number's huge, but the sort of significant aspects of it. And I don't know how I'm saying to say what I'm saying. So maybe just ask Frank to do his presentation, and then we'll come back and ask for places where people would like to see changes, or if there's anything that you think might not be in there that should be, or is in there that shouldn't be, and we'll go ahead that way. I do want to point out that we need to stop at 7:45, but that's 42 minutes away, so we have quite a bit of time. But we do need an executive session this evening. Frank, please.
Okay, sure. Paul, do you have me set up for share screen?
Yuppers.
Okay, thank you. I want to echo the very favorable comments that have been shared about working with the Finance Committee and the Budget Review Committee. It's really been a very good process. We've been at it diligently since November 30, specifically on budget development, and it's really been rewarding to work with such dedicated, good people. Wow, I guess I better be quick because I just got the battery's going to run out. So that's a good thing. So I've shared the summary document that's on the website here, and this was the one that was sent out on Friday last week. Sort of some quick points of reference. Budget of $59,842,000 is proposed, up 6.8%. However, a substantial amount of that funding is coming from these sub-grants. You see up here, $4.9 million and $5.8 million. So most of that is new money associated with ESSER, which really substantially funds the increase. So there's a really big picture view. We continue to spend most of our money on direct instruction. Of course, that's what the blue here is in the pie chart. And then this other wedge over here is primarily instructional services for students as well, but it's identified as special education services, but it's absolutely direct support to students for instruction. So in total, that's approximately 75% of the budget. When we look at the funding sources and then some of the highlights. The very favorable development around the tax rate. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but it is at this point an estimate. It's unusual to see spending up and taxes go down, but that's the dynamic, and very much associated with our federal and our state reps that have recognized the role of public schools in our communities and really have stepped up with providing support that's reducing the tax burden based on our preliminary numbers. So even though student spending is up, tax rates are projected to be down. We'll look at that a little bit. I am waiting for a more up-to-date equalized student number. You see at this point in our draft, we're still carrying the prior year, but I expect to hear something this week. Some of our major financial impacts that account for the $3.8 million increase, or this what we referred to up here, 6.8%. Here are some of the big drivers. The usual wage and benefits, of course, because we're mostly people in terms of what we do. And as the Finance Committee has reviewed, we're adding 8 new positions. That's much higher than we normally would, but that's part of what drives the increase in salary and benefits, of course, new people. There was also a fairly significant increase. It's about 6% increase in special education services. In terms of the what's called net assessment to the district from the SU, that's a combination of 2 things: higher needs, higher student needs that required additional services, but then also the loss of some of our special ed revenue due to Act 173. And then, so a third sort of area of increase that is in this $59 million budget is in the capital improvement area. We have several major capital projects where we're getting a substantial amount of grant funding to help respond to the pandemic and improve our learning environments. Despite those increases, we do have some decreases. Jackie mentioned the largest one. Because of the USDA additional services or reimbursement, we normally have been contributing this amount of money, $370,000, as part of the operation of about a $1.7 million food service operation that's run through the supervisory union. But the district's share of that is being reduced because of a higher reimbursement rate. It's not this year that we see a substantial decrease in a debt service. It will be fiscal year 25. We will see over $1 million, $1.6 million reduction there associated with the original bond on the UHS campus. But there is this declining interest cost. And we also have a little more revenue for transportation, so we're able to see a reduction in the net assessment to Windham Southeast School District from the SU. Our enrollment is recovering a bit from the pandemic. These are actually student attendance when we get our November census. This is not equalized students, though. This is just actual enrollment in our school buildings. And then you see this significant increase in employment. Now, I do want to maybe update this 398. The 398 is the original budget before ESSER and all of that. The amended employment number is 416. So the amended budget in 22 compares to the projected budget of 424. That's the 8 positions I was referring to, and we do have a lot more detail on that information. But the asterisk you see at the bottom there is related to those, the staffing increases and the salary and benefits, along with the capital increases, largely funded by this additional approximately $4.3 million per year over the next 2 years in ESSER money. The last highlight on that page is the $10,265,000 you see right there at the bottom of the page in capital improvements over the next several years that, again, we're doing the best we can to match improvements as a response to the pandemic, but also to qualify for grant funding. Great deal of work is going there. Robert Clark is doing a terrific job with our facility managers to help really make those improvements. One last thing I wanted to review briefly. Glad to answer any questions. Here's that tax page that it's developed by the Agency of Ed, and it's organized around the school funding formula. The most important number on the page in terms of making an impact on taxes is this first line, this $12,937. That's what's called the property dollar equivalent yield. The legislature ultimately will set that, but it is based on the tax commissioner's analysis of the economic conditions in Vermont, and what will it take to raise 1.2 billion in public ed money to fund schools in Vermont. There's an additional 600 million that comes from other sources, but the ed fund is about 1.2 million, and that number right there is the number we compare our spending against. So if we spent $12,937, those two numbers divided by each other is $1, that would be our tax rate. Twice 13,000 is 26,000, right? So if we spent 26,000, we compare it to this 12,937, that would be a $2 tax rate. So you can see as this yield goes up, our tax rate goes down. So it's a very good thing that the yield is going up 16%. That is totally mitigating all of the other pressures on the tax rate. And just one more point of reference, so when you look at historically, you see how we were 10,006 in that first line, and then 10,998, and then 11,300. Those are about $300 increments. We're going up 1,600. That's 5 times our normal increment. This is a reflection of the pandemic, our real estate market really skyrocketing across the state. So our property values will raise a lot more money this year than it would have last year. That's one of several effects that go into the commissioner's analysis and recommendation. So after plugging in all of our variables and our revenue assumptions, our student assumptions, we come down to $1.61 equalized. And there goes my battery. So we come down to $1.61 equalized, and that's 6% less than the prior year. And then the all-important CLA. Do you think we are on the same wattage? Thank you. So I've only got a couple more comments, but. Thank you. So when we come down to the actual tax rate that we're anticipating, our taxpayers to pay, assuming these are all draft numbers and they, subject to the legislative change, you can see in the documents that we've sent out, we're looking at Brattleboro, even with a CLA decrease of 6%, we're still looking at a projected almost no change in the tax rate. $1.74 this year, $1.74 next year. And all of our towns are seeing property values rise, apparently, based on the listers reporting to the tax department. Dummerston has a 4% reduction in the CLA, and Guilford nearly the same, and Putney 3% reduction. A reduction in the CLA pushes the tax rate up. But because the yield is up so much more, we're seeing all of our proposed tax rates with this budget lower, except Brattleboro being right at about even with the prior year. So that's the sort of the short version of what the Finance Committee's done for the last five meetings. We've reviewed the details, and Jackie just did a great job connecting all of what I've just reviewed to programs and services and people and kids and outcomes.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay.
So let's try to shift to questions from the board members and the public at this point. Places, again, there's a lot more to look at and a lot more to talk about, but questions that people have about things that we think need to be added or removed, or changes that we would recommend to the budget from the floor. Any questions or thoughts? Ruby, this would be the place for you to, if you had a specific request, this would be the place for it.
I was kind of giving some time and space for the board in case there's a board member who wants to jump in first, but I'd be happy to. So I have looked at the budget. It is so intense. There's a lot in there. So I'm going back to just a narrative conversation rather than number crunching and pointing to a line on the budget. But there are 2 points that we as a leadership council and members of the Putney community have seen and wanted to identify and ask about related to ESSER 3 funding. It's entirely possible that these are things that if you can read between the lines, they're there in some capacity, but we can't see them and we don't want this moment to pass by. So the first one is that the Putney Central School Leadership Council started a project last year that was looking at outdoor structures on the PCS campus. And then this year, the PCS Playground Committee looked specifically and is beginning to look at revamping the playground. In looking to the work that has been done regionally by area schools, that's similar to what we're doing, like Dummerston and Hilltop Montessori, both of which are doing or have done kind of major renovation work on their campuses. We think it'd be wise to have a landscape design consultant help with looking holistically at our campus and thinking about how to integrate the needed outdoor structures that we've seen that we've needed in the last few years within our existing landscape. So depending on the scope of the project, it could be between $5,000 to $7,500, not 5,000, yeah, $5,000 to $7,500, which feels like a major drop in the bucket when I look at this budget. But it's important to us, and we wanted to, we'd like it to be considered for ESSER 3 funding in terms of that expense. So that's the first comment. And the second one is something that I do see some references to, but maybe with a little bit of a different flavor than I'd like to kind of invite us to think about it. During the pandemic, families have felt more disconnected from our schools than ever before. And we haven't been in the building as parents. We haven't met new staff or participated in school events in years. And I think some of us feel the loss very acutely and others barely noticed, but they're drifting farther and farther away from our school communities. And it's just, and where I see it in your ESSER 3 kind of recovery plan, the recovery plan is related to truancy and student attendance and student engagement. But this is more specifically talking about family engagement. And I think we think it's essential that we find ways to heal and to focus on family school relations, not just student engagement. And it's really critically important. So I think that I want to urge the school district to allocate ESSER 3 funding toward this type of important work district-wide. And that kind of funding could be used towards staffing or towards events and the costs of events, or resources specifically focused on re-engaging families. And a commitment of monetary resources via ESSER 3 funding would speak volumes, in my opinion, to the district's empathy for families during this time. And I don't, because it's a district-wide need, I don't have any idea of what kind of what that cost would be, but I'd really like for some kind of family engagement role or funding to be considered under ESSER 3. So those are just two kind of buckets that we have seen, and we don't know how to make happen in the world of ESSER 3 funding, which is like a little subset of this budget, this huge budget work.
Thanks, Ruby. And you reminded me of something that I didn't remind me, put the thought right in my head that I hadn't even considered in terms of this process. Aside from the fact that we just moved to an Australian ballot and aren't going to have an annual meeting, we haven't had an annual meeting in 2 years, and our first one was really our first one, and the budget was created by the town school boards and basically just voted from the floor with, I think, 1 or 2 changes. And typically what happened in the Brattleboro town meetings and in other school board meetings that I witnessed were that people would come in and recommend from the floor, and then other people would comment and say, yeah, we really need that, or that's a great idea, or the community really wants this. And then somebody's not muted. The administration would find a way would come back with the effect that would have on the budget, or in the case of the second thing you mentioned, Ruby, the
Yeah, I'm
I've got it shut off.
I just
love this system. I got the volume all shut off.
can you mute your microphone?
Yeah, that's what I've done. I muted it, but
It still shows. Let me mute it for you.
He's good now, I think.
You're good.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Typically, the people of the town would in the annual meeting would talk about whether this is a good idea or not, and they would consider it, and then they'd ask the administration to, either in the case of the $7,500 for the consultant, where you know what that costs because you've got examples, they would need to, but in terms of family engagement, what would that mean in terms of cost? Because I'm sure that in fact, I think Steve had a whole position dealing with family engagement for the high school, so it's not unheard of. And typically at a town meeting, a school meeting, annual meeting, the administration would be asked to come back at the next meeting with a number. We do still have time to do that. And we're not going to have a regular annual meeting, and we will have the public presentation where that can happen again. But I think that what I'd like us to do is look at these things, try to identify some numbers, and then ask Mark and Frank to go back and talk with the administrative team where that's appropriate, and come show us what those things that we think are needed would do to the budget, or if there are things that we think we need to remove. But so anyway, I look for people that have other things that they want to bring up. This is the time to ask for them and to be as specific as you can about the cost, and we'll see if we can somehow replace some of the dynamic of the annual meeting that we won't be having. So,
Maybe could I respond?
Mark or Frank? Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ruby, both of those are requests I think are in the budget. If you went to page 110 of the detailed document that's on the website, that's the Putney component of the ESSER proposal. And I did speak with her, Mark and I spoke with her. He's got 40,000 in there for the outdoor structures, knowing that, that might not be the entire bill, but it's certainly, a significant contribution to that. So that was definitely part of the budget discussions. And then the staffing, we have full-time engagement counselor, social worker budgeted for next year. So that is a significant increase over the current commitment, and that is all part of the ESSER funding plan. So I think both of those requests that you just asked for are in the budget plan. In addition, there is a academic support position that's been added that is funded through the ESSER program. So there's a significant amount of commitment there, and as I say, you can kind of see that in the detail. The print there starts on page oh, I'm sorry, 119, yeah, and it's all kind of detailed there.
Currently, Susan Gunther Moore is the shared outreach coordinator between Dummerston and Putney.
Right. So, and thank you for pointing that out, Frank and Paul. The one thing that I see that and I appreciate it. I feel like when I see the recovery plan and the dialogue around it, it is very focused appropriately on student performance and within the four walls. And I guess what I'm trying to highlight is as a family member who, yes, I want my kid, I want all kids to perform well. I want them to be engaged, and I want my engagement with the school to enhance that. But I also think there's a community piece and a way in which this hub, this thing that was a huge part of my life, I was like in the building all the time and, volunteering and doing all sorts of things, and that's been gone. So how do we build that up? And I think if we can think really systematically about it, it would be great. And so I don't think I think that's a slightly different thing than the social worker. And Susie's great, and I like her a lot, and I think she's going to do wonderful work specifically at getting at that piece that's identified in ESSER around family engagement that's related specifically to student participation. But I think there's something bigger that I don't want to miss that boat and miss that opportunity to build up our community and our family engagement for the sake of family engagement.
So Ruby, do you feel like you're?
Yeah.
I mean, great. Yeah, I think everything that we're seeing in the media in terms of behavior issues and mental health issues and socialization issues reinforces what you're saying. Is it's not going to happen inside the four walls. It's really going to take the entire community. Jamie. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Jamie. Thomas had his hand up and then took it down, but he's back. So Thomas?
Yeah, I've been looking over all the budget. I don't know if I'm missing anything. I don't see anything allocated to either climate change, doing anything about climate change, or putting any money into efforts to diversify the workforce. Is that the case?
So there's a significant investment in energy efficiency and as it relates to the HVAC systems. So we can look at the capital plan if you'd like to take a moment. There is a significant amount of the general fund that is also contributing to the capital fund to get these projects done. Shall we take a few minutes?
Yeah, I think we should just kind of go through as much as we can.
Yep.
And then pick it up again at the next meeting.
Very good. Let me restart my desktop here, and we'll look at some capital plans. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, we got Jackie. Okay. So within this budget, and this is something that the Finance Committee just reviewed this afternoon, a little bit before this meeting. So here is a summary of the capital plan, and in total it's fiscal year 22, 23, 24, 25 is 10.2 million, and this is a sort of an overview of the infrastructure improvements. And then in the lower section of this spreadsheet is the improvements by site. It's the same 10.2 million, it's just showing it in different ways. And you can see a significant amount of this is dedicated to HVAC and ventilation systems, which has an awful lot to do with being more fuel efficient and mitigating climate effects. So we can take as much time as you like, and Thomas, if you wanted to kind of delve into this more detail after we just kind of touch base on some of the projects, I'm happy to engage in that with you. So for example, here we are with the high school, you see we have $150,000 in hot water. This is absolutely intended to be the best use of resources, which, as you know, in a public school, domestic hot water is absolutely critical for hygiene, but also takes a lot of energy to manage. So as I scroll down this capital plan, and we have the prior year version on the website, and Finance Committee just gave me the go-ahead to move forward with this plan. So this will be on the website tomorrow. As I scroll down through here, you see that we have a total out of that 10 million of 1.4 million for the high school, the bands facility, and the career center. And then the following year, 1.1 million again. And if you spend some time in this document, you'll see that many of these improvements have a lot to do with mitigating climate from an energy efficiency point of view. Most of these things do, as you look through. The HVAC systems, most of them were installed in 2003 with the building construction, the $55 million bond that was initiated to retrofit this building and build additions and so on. Those systems are becoming obsolete, so these control systems and these HVAC improvements are going to be substantially improving on the footprint. And the good news is we're building on already a very climate-friendly operations, in that most of our systems are fired by biofuels, and our solar array is providing most of our electricity that's part of a net metering agreement purchased through the Windham Solid Waste solar array that has a developer that we've partnered with. So I can point to a whole lot of examples. Here's another one. Dummerston was one of the highest consumptions of fossil fuels in the fiscal year 21, prior year. That project has been completed. We've switched an old boiler system fired by oil to pellets. That's happening right now. It's actually the job is getting finalized in the control systems as well. So there are a lot of investments in here that will reduce our energy footprint and continue to address climate issues, including a number of window projects. There's a lot of thermal factors associated with windows. So that's throughout most of our buildings. We have much more efficient window systems going in. So there's sort of a general overview. You can see it's a very significant investment. Again, going back to the summary, in total for fiscal year 22, 3.6 million, and then next year 3.3 million. And every one of those typically will have some kind of a climate-related impact.
Great, thank you, Frank.
Sure. Thomas,
My only other question is there any money associated with my other point in doing
Yes.
any efforts towards diversifying the workforce?
Are there any specific expenditures
Any
to
specific
improve that?
expenditures that would be in the pursuit of that?
So we've included a diversity, equity, inclusion coordinator position. This would be a full-time position. That is reflected in this budget. We have done interviews, we have identified a candidate. That candidate is currently a classroom teacher in our system. And this person cannot leave that classroom at this time because we don't have candidates available right now to hire during the pandemic. That's just the reality of where we are. But we have a terrific candidate who will be joining that team likely in the spring or to start next school year. And then we've created many more opportunities to diversify our workforce by introducing a lot of new positions that is reflected in this budget. Social workers, academic support teachers, instructional coaches. Potentially, we're going to be bringing in a significant increased workforce this spring if we're successful in our hiring practices. Right now, currently, it's very dim in terms of hiring. I was looking on School Spring the other day, and we have many positions that we're searching for, and we have little to no applicants at this point. So hopefully that'll change. Usually it does in the spring, especially if numbers around COVID go down. But that's where we are right now. An increase in the diversity, equity, inclusion coordinator position, and then lots of new positions to be filled in all of our schools. Hopefully this spring in preparation to support our recovery plan next year.
I'll just add, this isn't in the new budget, but it's been in the budget for this very purpose for a long time in the diversity equity coordinator budget for developing long-term relationships with institutions, with schools, colleges, universities, particularly ones that train a lot of teachers or people or educators, and actually going and building relationships with the placement people, with the students there, taking groups of our students to visit them, to explore, especially historically black colleges and universities, and also to build relationships with them so that they know that we're here and we're looking to hire people, we're looking to expand. So the COVID just killed any progress in that, and I'm not sure this spring is going to be any better, but if it is, hopefully that process can get started in the spring, or if not, then in the fall.
David, Tim had a couple other questions that I have as answers, but if you wanted to address that now.
Yeah, Tim, I see Jamie had her hand up before you, but Frank has prepared answers for. So let's go down the line because Frank has your other questions answered. So Jamie, go ahead, please.
My original reason for raising my hand as a part of the Putney Central Leadership Council is both out of support to the points Ruby McAdoo made, which I'm grateful to hear that it sounds like there's funds available for outdoor planning. It also, I wanted to reiterate the idea of that reconnecting with families and how we can do that intentionally as schools with our family communities. I'm also really struck by, as a mother of 2 young children who are just starting out within this school system, the lack of aftercare programming and the impact that that has on young kids and how that intersects with what's been happening with COVID, and thinking about programming after school that would incorporate
alert from mail. Enter the password for the account tmtmaciel@gmail.com.
Amy.
That was very exciting.
Password required.
I don't know what that was, Jamie, but you're back.
I think Tim needs to mute. Just that wasn't a secret code from me. So just been thinking about how we work together within communities to make sure after school programming and enrichment programming is available to kids who are still recovering. So that's something that's been on my heart. So I'm hoping, Frank, you can see if that also was included in the ESSER funding request. Is that something you see there too?
There are a number of after-school programming and also summer school programming. And I don't know if Deb is with us. She'd probably be able to kind of respond to that better than I could.
And Ann, would you take the chair for a minute, please? Call on Tim when Deb and Frank are completed.
And just to clarify, I'm interested for the whole district, but I'm specifically asking about Putney Central.
Hi, everybody. I can speak a little bit to that. We are in the process right now of really working hard to find somebody to take on summer programming. Our hope is to fold that into some coordination of our after-school programming in order to develop some equitable programs across schools. But at this moment in time, I know it's really occurring just at the school level, mostly because of contact. We want to minimize contact across schools. Jamie, I hear you that you're speaking specifically toward Putney, and I think our hope is that to have somebody really looking at all schools will really begin to carry the threads of things that are working in some environments across to other environments, so that we can share ideas more readily.
My question was, did after school programming ESSER funding get included in this budget?
Yes, it did, unquestionably. Parsed out to each of the schools. I don't have the exact number, but yes, after school programming is in ESSER 3.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure. And I was also just wanting to support the need for, I was in one of the meetings when we were talking about diversifying the workforce and the critical need for representation within staff and teachers within our district. So I'm really wanting, I think one of the things that happened in one of the subcommittee meetings that I attended, or one of the committee meetings I attended, was a discussion about hiring practice, where we're advertising, who we have relationships with. And so it seemed like we need to continue investing in support and consultants to help predominantly white leadership get very comfortable in their skin about the critical work ahead of us. So we get really confident and able to talk about exactly where we're at, assessing it, creating goals, and identifying tools for folks who are really challenged to follow through with some of those goals. And I would include myself in one of those people who would love that kind of support. So thank you for taking that seriously.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Deb and Paul. Tim?
Okay, first I have two things. But first, Frank, I have several questions, but I think in considering the time, if you can just answer the one question I had about the custodian at Oak Grove, is that?
So there was two positions. The Oak Grove has had two positions for quite some time. So it's actually a pretty level funded budget. And one is definitely like a custodial position. The other position is a facility manager position. So there's very little change there in that budget proposal.
Yeah, they're not
So
new
that
positions.
position is only for Oak Grove, it's not for all the schools?
Those two positions are dedicated to Oak Grove, yes.
Okay. David, if there's no more discussion about the budget, I have a motion to make concerning board stipends.
Well, it's 7:46. So, and we will meet and have time to talk about this again at our next meeting. But what I want to do is just check with the board and see if we want to. We do have to have an executive session, and so I want to check with the board and see if we. But I particularly want to check with the administrators and see if you want to put another 20 minutes in the evening, or just. I mean, I want to get you home, and we do have another meeting, and this is a foreshortened process anyway. I think we're gonna get done everything we can get done. But I can't decide that myself, so what I'd like to do is ask the board for a sense of whether well, first, another 20 minutes, or do you want to just wait for the next meeting?
I'm fine with waiting for the next meeting.
Yeah,
Unless there's something pressing.
I would like to stick with our 8 o'clock goal. So in that case, Tim, I'd ask you to hold that motion, and we'll do it. I've got a bunch of things on my list too, and we'll do that. We'll start with that at the next meeting. And Michelle, if your question is related to the budget or just a statement, if you could do it really quickly, and then I want to ask for a motion to enter executive session.
Yep. I just was going to speak just real fast to some of the comments about the work we're doing to diversify our employment. I know in the SU budget, it's reflected there was a significant increase, and I'm sorry, I have thousands of pages of budget. I was trying to find the section, Frank, but I know there was a significant increase in our advertisement. And I know some of the conversations we had around that did reflect those goals. And I know, just as a SU board member, since the only thing that we really get to oversee is the hiring process of a superintendent, we did hire a consultant as well as to how to have better outreach in a more diverse candidate pool. So just wanted to share that.
Great, thank you, Michelle. That was well timed. Okay, so could I have a motion, please, to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313A1B, labor relations with employees, and 1 VSA 313A3, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee.
So moved. Liz.
Thank you, Ann. Liz, may I have a second, please?
Seconded.
Thank you, Tim. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Oh, we're going to invite the superintendent to join us. Any opposed? Moved and seconded, moved by Ann, seconded by Liz, that we adjourn at 9:17. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we left executive session at 9:16 and we adjourn at 9:17. Thank you, everyone. Take care.